Your soulmate just realized they can't replace you. My beloved child, listen carefully, don't skip this message, because something has shifted in the heart of the person you cannot stop thinking about. They may have tried to convince themselves that life would be easier without you. They may have walked away, distracted themselves, met new people, changed their routine, or acted as though the connection meant nothing. But somewhere along the way, they discovered a truth they were not prepared to face: they can meet other people, but they cannot simply replace what they experienced with you. And this realization may have arrived quietly, through an ordinary moment that suddenly became deeply emotional. Maybe they heard a song, visited a familiar place, saw something that reminded them of you, or found themselves wanting to tell you something before remembering that you were no longer there. That is when the silence became louder. That is when they realized that replacing a person is not the same as replacing a feeling, a memory, a connection, or the unique way someone made you feel understood. For a while, they may have believed moving on would be simple. They may have thought that meeting someone new would automatically erase the old emotions. They may have told themselves, there are plenty of people in the world. And technically, they were right. There are countless people they could meet. But the heart does not measure love by numbers. It remembers experiences. It remembers the way someone looked at you when you were not expecting it. It remembers the conversations that lasted longer than planned. It remembers the laughter, the silence, the little habits, the private jokes, the moments when you understood each other without needing many words. And your soulmate may have discovered that while another person can occupy the same physical space, they cannot automatically recreate the history you shared. They may have tried. Perhaps they became busy. Perhaps they started talking to someone new. Perhaps they even entered another relationship. Maybe they tried to convince themselves that they were finally happy and that the past was behind them. But then something unexpected happened. They began comparing moments. Not necessarily consciously, and not necessarily because another person was doing anything wrong. The comparison may have happened naturally. A new conversation did not feel like yours. A new laugh did not sound the same. A new connection did not carry the same emotional depth. A new person did not understand certain parts of them the way you once did. And suddenly they realized that the problem was not that other people were not good enough. The problem was that they had been searching for a replacement for something that was never meant to be duplicated. That realization can be painful. Because when someone leaves, they often imagine that the person they left will eventually become a distant memory. They expect time to make everything easier. But time sometimes does something completely different. It removes the emotional noise and leaves the truth behind. Your soulmate may have started remembering you without the anger, without the arguments, without the confusion, without the circumstances that caused the separation. They may now be remembering the good moments more clearly. They may be looking at the past with greater maturity and realizing that some things they once took for granted were actually rare. Maybe you gave them patience they did not appreciate. Maybe you listened when they could not explain themselves. Maybe you believed in them during a season when they did not believe in themselves. Maybe you noticed things about them that other people overlooked. Maybe you made them feel safe enough to reveal parts of themselves they usually hid. And now they are realizing that those things cannot simply be purchased, copied, or replaced. There is a difference between finding someone new and finding someone who creates the same emotional experience. Your soulmate may finally understand that difference. They may have discovered that attraction is easy. Conversation is easy. Meeting someone new is easy. But finding someone who genuinely understands your heart is rare. Finding someone who knows when you are pretending to be okay is rare. Finding someone who remembers the smallest details is rare. Finding someone who can make you laugh when you do not feel like smiling is rare. Finding someone who challenges you and comforts you at the same time is rare. And perhaps you were that person for them. They may have realized it only after losing access to you. That does not mean you should chase them. It does not mean you should sit around waiting for them. It does not mean you should assume they are coming back. It simply means that sometimes absence reveals value in a way presence cannot. When you were there, they may have assumed you would always be there. They may have become comfortable with your attention. They may have expected your messages. They may have known that if they needed someone, you would probably answer. They may have assumed that if they ever changed their mind, you would still be available. But then life continued. You became quieter. You started focusing on yourself. You stopped explaining your worth. You stopped chasing. And suddenly they had to experience your absence without being able to control it. That is when the realization may have become stronger. They may have looked around and wondered why nobody else felt like you. And the answer may be simple, because nobody else is you. No one has your exact story. No one has your exact personality. No one has your exact way of expressing love. No one has the exact memories you created together. No one can duplicate the version of themselves that existed when they were with you. That last part is important. Sometimes people do not just miss the other person. They miss who they were when they were loved by that person. Your soulmate may miss the version of themselves that laughed more freely around you. They may miss the confidence they felt when you believed in them. They may miss having someone who knew their history. They may miss the comfort of being understood without having to explain every detail. And that can make moving on much harder. They may have tried to recreate the experience with someone else, but eventually realized that relationships are not interchangeable. You cannot take one person out and put another person in and expect the emotional story to remain the same. Maybe they once believed they had options. Now they understand that options are not the same as connection. They may have learned that attention is not intimacy. Attraction is not compatibility. Chemistry is not trust. Conversation is not emotional safety. And being wanted is not the same as being understood. Perhaps this is why their thoughts have been returning to you. Not necessarily because they suddenly became perfect. Not necessarily because they have figured everything out. But because something inside them has finally become honest. They cannot pretend anymore. They can say they are fine. They can post pictures. They can smile. They can go out. They can meet people. They can build a new life. But when everything becomes quiet, their mind may still return to the same question: why did I let that person go? And maybe they are beginning to understand the answer. Fear. Pride. Bad timing. emotional immaturity, confusion, pressure, or simply not understanding what they had while they had it. Sometimes people recognize value after they no longer have easy access to it. That realization can create regret. They may remember the last conversation. They may remember the moment things changed. They may remember something they said that they wish they could take back. They may remember your expression when you realized they were pulling away. They may remember how you tried to hold the connection together. And perhaps they now understand that you were not asking for too much. You were asking for the basics. Honesty, consistency, communication, effort, reassurance, respect. Maybe they were not ready to give those things. And now they are realizing what that cost them. But listen carefully, my beloved child, because this part matters. Their realization is not your responsibility. You do not need to make them realize your value. You do not need to post things to make them jealous. You do not need to pretend you are with someone else. You do not need to disappear as a strategy. You do not need to manipulate their emotions. Live your life genuinely. If they recognize your value, let that be their own realization. If they miss you, let them experience that feeling. If they regret losing you, let them sit with the lesson. And if they truly want another opportunity, they can communicate that directly. You do not need to decode every little sign. You do not need to spend your nights wondering what they are doing. Because the healthiest form of love does not require constant detective work. If someone wants to return, they can return with clarity. If they want to apologize, they can apologize. If they want to rebuild, they can participate in rebuilding. And if they are not ready, you can continue moving forward. That is your freedom. Perhaps your soulmate is beginning to understand that freedom too. They may realize that you were never something they owned. You were someone they were fortunate to experience. And losing you was not losing a possession. It was losing an opportunity. An opportunity to build something meaningful. An opportunity to grow alongside someone. An opportunity to become a better version of themselves. And now they may be wondering whether that opportunity still exists. They may be thinking about reaching out. They may open your conversation and close it. They may write something and delete it. They may wonder whether you would even respond. They may fear that you have moved on. They may fear that you no longer care. And that fear may be teaching them something they never understood before. You are allowed to move forward. They cannot expect you to remain emotionally available forever. If they left, they gave up certainty. If they chose silence, they accepted uncertainty. If they pushed you away, they cannot be shocked when you eventually stop reaching. That does not make you cold. It means you are human. And perhaps they are finally understanding the consequences of their choices. But there is something even deeper here. Your soulmate may have realized that they cannot replace you because the connection changed them. Maybe you introduced them to a side of themselves they had never seen. Maybe you encouraged them to dream bigger. Maybe you challenged their beliefs. Maybe you showed them that vulnerability was not weakness. Maybe you made them question the walls they built around their heart. And even if the relationship ended, the lesson remained. They may carry something you taught them into every future relationship. They may become more honest because of you. They may become more emotionally aware because of you. They may become more willing to communicate because of what they lost. And perhaps one day they will realize that you were not simply a chapter. You were part of their transformation. That does not mean you are destined to reunite. It means the connection mattered. And sometimes that is important to acknowledge. Not every meaningful connection becomes a lifelong relationship. Some connections become lessons. Some become turning points. Some become memories. Some return years later in a healthier form. And some are meant to teach you what you will and will not accept in the future. You do not need to know which one this is today. Let time reveal it. If your soulmate returns, do not judge the return by how emotional it feels. Judge it by what happens afterward. Anyone can say, "I miss you." The question is whether they can say, "I am willing to do things differently." Anyone can say, "I never stopped caring." The question is whether they can show consistent care. Anyone can say, "I made a mistake." The question is whether they have learned from it. Anyone can ask for another chance. The question is whether they understand what another chance requires. Because another chance is not a reset button. It is a responsibility. It requires honesty about what happened. It requires accountability. It requires patience. It requires new behavior. And if they have genuinely grown, you will see the difference. They will not need to convince you with dramatic promises. Their consistency will speak for them. They will communicate when things become uncomfortable instead of disappearing. They will respect your boundaries instead of testing them. They will make plans instead of making excuses. They will listen instead of becoming defensive. They will understand that trust takes time. And they will not expect you to forget the past simply because they regret it. That is what maturity looks like. Maybe this is the unexpected realization happening inside your soulmate now. They may finally understand that the person they thought they could replace was never simply a role. You were a specific person who brought a specific energy into their life. They can meet 100 people and still not find your exact combination of qualities. They can have conversations with others and still remember yours. They can laugh with others and still remember how you made them laugh. They can be physically close to someone and still remember what emotional closeness with you felt like. And the more they try to ignore it, the more obvious the difference may become. But again, do not turn this realization into a reason to wait. Your life is not a waiting room. Keep building. Keep healing. Keep becoming. Keep pursuing the things that make you proud. Because the strongest position you can occupy is not, "I hope they come back." It is, "If they come back, I will decide whether their presence belongs in the life I have built." That is different. That is power. You are no longer asking, "Will they choose me?" You are asking, "Are they capable of choosing me in a healthy way?" You are no longer asking, "Do they miss me?" You are asking, "Can they show up?" You are no longer asking, "Do they love me?" You are asking, "Do they know how to love me?" Those questions will protect your heart. And perhaps your soulmate will have to answer them. Maybe they are realizing that losing you was not simply losing someone they loved. It was losing someone who knew them deeply. Someone who saw behind the mask. Someone who understood the difference between their words and their emotions. Someone who could sense when something was wrong. Someone who cared about their future. And maybe they did not appreciate that enough. Now, they may be remembering moments they once dismissed. A simple message. A random conversation. A small act of kindness. A moment when you encouraged them. A time when you stayed when you could have left. Those small things may become enormous in memory. Because when someone is gone, ordinary moments can become precious. They may replay them. They may wonder whether you still remember them. They may wonder whether you ever think about them. And perhaps they secretly hope that you do. But your healing should not depend on whether they think about you. Your healing should come from knowing that you loved sincerely. You gave what you could. You learned what you needed to learn. You grew from what happened. And now you are allowed to move forward without carrying resentment. You do not have to hate them to let them go. You do not have to forget them to move on. You do not have to stop caring to choose yourself. Sometimes healing simply means you stop allowing the past to control the present. And maybe that is what your soulmate is noticing. They may sense that you are no longer chasing. They may sense that your energy has changed. They may realize that you are not waiting for them to validate your worth. And that can create a completely different kind of respect. They may suddenly see you as someone they could lose permanently. Not because you are playing games, but because you are genuinely moving forward. That realization can be powerful. But again, do not perform your healing for them. Heal for yourself. Grow for yourself. Become stronger for yourself. Your life should not be a performance designed to make someone regret losing you. Your life should be your life. And if they happen to notice the transformation, that is simply a consequence. Perhaps one day they will look at you and realize, I cannot replace this person. But maybe the deeper truth will be that you never needed to be replaced. You were never competing with anyone. You were never one option among many. You were simply you. And your value was never determined by whether someone recognized it immediately. Diamonds do not become valuable because someone finally notices them. Their value existed before the recognition. The same is true of you. Your soulmate's realization does not create your worth. It only reveals that they finally recognized something that was already there. So if they return, let them come honestly. If they speak, let them speak clearly. If they apologize, let them take responsibility. If they want another chance, let them explain what has changed. And if they cannot offer those things, you do not need to force a future that is not ready. Because you deserve a love that does not require you to constantly wonder where you stand. You deserve someone who does not need to lose you before understanding your value. You deserve someone who appreciates you while you are there. You deserve consistency without having to threaten departure. You deserve communication without begging. You deserve affection without confusion. You deserve commitment without manipulation. And if your soulmate eventually becomes capable of offering that, then perhaps the story can evolve. But if they do not, remember that your future is still beautiful. There is no shortage of love available to a heart that is open, wise, and grounded. You are not limited to one person. You are not limited to one timeline. You are not limited to one outcome. Your life can surprise you. Maybe your soulmate returns. Maybe someone new arrives. Maybe you discover that the love you were searching for was never supposed to make you anxious. Maybe you realize that peace feels better than uncertainty. Maybe the greatest surprise is that you no longer need the person who once felt impossible to live without. And if that happens, do not feel guilty. Healing is not betrayal. Moving forward is not betrayal. Choosing peace is not betrayal. Sometimes the greatest way to honor what you experienced is to carry the lesson forward instead of carrying the pain. So, my beloved child, if your soulmate has just realized they cannot replace you, let that realization belong to them. Let them understand it in their own time. Let them confront the memories they avoided. Let them recognize the difference between attention and connection. Let them learn the value of consistency. Let them understand what your absence revealed. You do not need to chase their realization. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to send the first message simply because you miss them. You do not need to monitor their life. You do not need to create jealousy. You do not need to become someone else. Stay exactly where your growth has brought you. Calm. Grounded. Strong. Open-hearted but not unprotected. Loving but not desperate. Forgiving but not forgetful. Hopeful but not dependent. And if the day comes when they finally stand before you and admit, "I tried to move on, but I realized I couldn't replace what we had," listen carefully. Do not only listen to the words. Look at the person saying them. Ask yourself whether they have changed. Ask whether they are ready. Ask whether they understand what they are asking for. Because the question is no longer whether they can replace you. The question is whether they can deserve another place in your life. That is the real turning point. Maybe they once walked away believing they had lost nothing. Now they may understand that they lost something rare. Maybe they thought you would always be there. Now they understand your absence. Maybe they thought someone else could easily take your place. Now they understand that people are not interchangeable. Maybe they believed the connection was temporary. Now they understand that some people leave an imprint that time cannot erase. And perhaps that imprint is you. But remember one final thing. You are not here to be someone's regret. You are here to be loved properly. You are not here to be the person someone appreciates only after losing. You are here to experience a relationship where appreciation exists while you are present. You are not here to teach someone how valuable you are by disappearing. You are here to share your life with someone who already understands that your heart deserves care. If your soulmate becomes that person, beautiful. If they do not, keep walking. Either way, you are moving towards something greater than the version of love that once made you question yourself. So breathe deeply tonight. Release the need to know exactly what they are thinking. Release the need to predict their next move. Release the need to control the outcome. Your only responsibility is to continue becoming the person you were always meant to become. And if they truly have realized that they cannot replace you, then perhaps they will eventually find the courage to communicate that truth themselves. Maybe there will be a message. Maybe there will be a conversation. Maybe there will be an unexpected meeting. Maybe there will be an apology. Maybe there will be nothing at all. You do not need to fear any of those possibilities, because you have already learned how to live without their certainty. You have already learned how to carry your own heart. You have already learned that love should add to your life, not consume it. And that lesson will protect you wherever your future leads. Perhaps one day, when everything is finally clear, you will understand why the separation happened. Perhaps you will see that both of you needed time to grow. Perhaps you will recognize that the distance exposed what closeness had hidden. Perhaps your soulmate needed to lose access to you before understanding what your presence meant. Perhaps you needed to lose them before discovering how much strength existed inside you. And if your paths meet again, you will not meet as the same people. You will meet as two people who have learned. Two people who have experienced consequences. Two people who understand that love cannot survive on feelings alone. It requires choice. It requires effort. It requires courage. It requires consistency. And if they truly cannot replace you, perhaps they will stop trying to replace you and start trying to understand you. Perhaps they will stop looking for another version of what they lost and finally realize that what they had was uniquely yours. But until then, keep living. Keep smiling. Keep growing. Keep building the future you want. Do not pause your life waiting for someone else's realization. Because your worth was never hidden. They simply may not have been ready to see it. And now, if they finally see it, let their actions speak. Let them come forward. Let them communicate. Let them prove that the realization has become transformation. And if they do, you will know what to do. You will not need to panic. You will not need to rush. You will simply look at the situation with the wisdom you gained from everything you survived. Because the greatest victory is not making someone realize they cannot replace you. The greatest victory is realizing that you never needed to be replaced in the first place. You are one of one. Your story is one of one. Your heart is one of one. And the love you gave was yours to give. No one can duplicate the exact chapter you shared. No one can rewrite the memories. No one can become you. And perhaps that is the truth your soulmate is finally beginning to understand. They may have walked away thinking they were leaving a relationship. But now they may realize they walked away from a person who changed them. And sometimes that realization arrives much later than we expect. But when it arrives, it can change everything. So don't chase them. Don't beg them. Don't prove yourself. Let them realize. Let them grow. Let them choose. And if they ever come back, make sure they are not simply returning because they could not find a replacement. Make sure they are returning because they finally understand your value, their responsibility, and the kind of love they are prepared to build with you. That is the difference between regret and readiness. And you deserve readiness. You deserve someone who chooses you with both feet in the relationship, not someone who returns only because every other door felt different. You deserve love that stays. You deserve love that communicates. You deserve love that grows. You deserve love that recognizes your value before losing you. And whether that love comes from your soulmate or from a completely unexpected chapter of your life, trust that you do not have to chase it. The right love will meet you with effort. The right love will meet you with honesty. The right love will meet you with peace. So let this be your final reminder: if your soulmate has realized they cannot replace you, that is their realization. Your realization is even more powerful. You cannot replace yourself either. There is only one you. And from this moment forward, never again accept a relationship that asks you to become smaller just so someone else can feel comfortable. You have grown too much for that. You have learned too much for that. You have survived too much for that. And perhaps the next time your soulmate sees you, they will not see the person they left behind. They will see the person who found themselves. They will see the person who stopped chasing. They will see the person who learned to love without losing themselves. And maybe, just maybe, that will be the moment they finally understand the truth they should have understood all along: they never needed someone else. They were searching for a replacement for someone who could never be replaced. They were searching for you.